outcome of this war would make or break British authority on this continent. Jamie, Nicholas's elder by 4 years and his uncle, had served with Washington during his march north in 1754 and had fought beside George in the blood and mud of Fort Necessity. But Jamie now had a wife, lovely Breege, and 2 small sons. He would not leave them. Nicholas had reasoned he could do the job just as well as Jamie, as they had been taught together by Dakota, the old Tuscarora healer who had made her home with his family since long before he'd been born. It had seemed right that he fill Jamie's shoes. And now? Now he would need every ounce of strength, every bit of courage he possessed. He was not immune to fear. 11 fires had been lit in fire pits running down the center of the enormous longhouse. Old women busied themselves building up the fires, adding wood until the lodge was uncomfortably warm in the already stifling July heat. As the fires crackled, Eben again began to weep, Josiah to curse the Wyandotte. Will it be quick? Nicholas had heard stories, accounts of the French priests who'd first encountered the Wyandotte 100 years before. He prayed the priests had lied. I don't know. Bloody savages! Josiah spat on the dirt floor. It's good they like fire, because they're going to burn in hell! Wyandotte villagers began to drift through the low entrance. Men, women, children. Soon the longhouse was packed from end to end. The Wyandotte stared at their prisoners with solemn eyes, and Nicholas could sense an undercurrent of expectation. Last winter was the Wyandotte war chief, Atson, who had dressed in ceremonial garb, a great bearskin cape draped over his bare, aged shoulders, a single eagle feather in his scalp lock. He held up his hand to silence the murmurs and whispers of his people, began to speak in Wyandotte. His words floated just beyond Nicholas's comprehension, strangely familiar and yet utterly foreign. He did not speak Wyandotte, but it sounded somewhat like Tuscarora, which he knew well. Several times he thought he understood a word or phrase, big knives, fight, river, but the words were spoken so quickly that Nicholas couldn't quite catch them. And then Nicholas recognized one. Sita. Fire. A few feet away, Eben wept like a frightened child. Josiah trembled, but glared at the Wyandotte with youthful bravado. How vulnerable and alone men are at the hour of their deaths. The thought, detached from emotion, flickered through Nicholas's mind, left dark regret in its wake. Why hadn't he been able to get to them faster? Why hadn't he been able to stop this? Why hadn't he found a means to escape? He closed his eyes, sent up what might have been a prayer. Let it be fast. Let us be strong. Do not let them suffer. Even as the last thought faded, several women stepped forward from the crowd and walked toward the captives. Nicholas felt cool fingers brush against his skin as his shirt and breeches were cut from his body, leaving him entirely naked. A glance showed him Josiah and Eben had likewise been stripped. Both were red in the face, and Nicholas realized they felt shame at being unclothed before strangers. As Atson's last words drifted into silence, the women who'd undressed them moved to the fires and began to stir the flames. Something twisted in Nicholas's gut. He tried to force down his fear. A young woman appeared at his side, the same young woman he'd rejected the day before. She looked up at him, her brown eyes dark with an emotion that might have been anger or lust. In her hand was a knife. Nicholas just caught a glimpse of the blade before she slid the tip into the skin of his belly. His muscles tensed in surprise at the razor-sharp pain. To his left, Eben shrieked. Nicholas watched in odd detachment as the woman deftly carved a small pocket from his flesh and wondered for a moment if she intended to skin him. Hot blood poured down his belly, past his exposed groin to his bare thighs. She looked up, met his gaze, a faint smile on her lips. Then she stepped aside to make room for an old woman who carried a small glowing ember from the fire on a flint blade. Nicholas realized what they were going to do a moment before they did it, and took a deep breath. I will not cry out. I must not cry out. The crone slipped the tip of her blade into the cut, pried the pocket of flesh open, and dropped